Taiki Inomata is a just regular average middle school lonely loser until he joins the high school badminton squad at Ime Academy, a school known for pumping out top athletes, not loser like him. He's always the second one to show up at early morning practice because a very hot and cute girl shows up before him, Kano. She's a first-year high schooler, a total basketball pro athlete, and Taiki suddenly got a crush on her, and thinking about how clap her as soon as possible. She's on a whole other level, super talented, hot as f***, very popular, and way out of Taiki's league. But just when it seems like they're worlds apart, fate pulls a wild card. Kano ends up living under the same roof as Taiki. Taiki rushes to school early every morning just to see a girl named Kano, who's already playing basketball. He runs like crazy just to catch a quick look at her, just like some of you who don't have a girlfriend. One day, she accidentally hits him in the face with a basketball. Feeling bad, she gives him a chocolate bar to say sorry, then goes right back to practicing like nothing happened. Taiki's left standing there, not because of the hit, but because he's totally in awe of her. They both go to the same sports school. Taiki plays badminton, and Kano is the star of the basketball team. A few hours later, the gym is packed with students from all kinds of sports teams. It's loud and busy, but Taiki's only thinking about one thing, Kano. He even starts daydreaming about what it'd be like to live in the same house as her. His friend quickly snaps him out of it, saying, "Dude, she's a basketball star. You don't stand a chance." Taiki feels a little down but doesn't back off. "My mom played basketball too," he says. "We've got something in common, I'm not giving up." Inspired by his own words, his friend throws him a tip, "At least get her number." That's step one. Right then, their other friend Hina walks over and asks, "What are you guys talking about?" Taiki gets flustered and says it's nothing. But then, kind of desperate, he asks her, "How do I impress a girl?" Without missing a beat, Hina goes full advice mode. First of all, she says, "You need to be someone dependable. Girls love that." The next tip, "Show off those muscles and dominate your masculinity like a real man." Taiki took it too seriously. The next morning, he headed to the gym but saw Kano sitting outside, gym locked. He froze like a 40-year-old virgin. Then just as he worked up the nerve to say something, she sneezed. Trying to be smooth, Taiki handed her his scarf, thinking she was cold. Then, just to top it off, he gave her a hand warmer too. He thought maybe he overdid it, but to his surprise, Kano smiled and joked, "What else you got in that magic bag?" She returned the scarf, saying she was fine, while Taiki was already off in fantasy land clapping her already, picturing her as his future wife. Right then, the security guard showed up and opened the gym. She thanked him, and that's when it hit him, she knew his name. The rest of the day, Taiki couldn't stop smiling. And now, he was more motivated than ever to get her number. Later on, Taiki was off in his own world again, staring at Kano, when Hina showed up out of nowhere. Of course, she instantly figured it out and warned him, "You might want to stay out of this." As he walked off, she couldn't help but stir the pot. "Oh, by the way, I saw Kano with some guy earlier." That one line left Taiki low-key panicking. After training, Taiki went back to the gym to grab his towel and found Kano still shooting hoops. "Just wanted to hang out with the ball a little longer," she said casually. Taiki admired her dedication. Then, out of the blue, she asked if he wanted to shoot around with her. Of course, he said yes. And of course, he got destroyed. While catching his breath, he mentioned that his mom used to play basketball. Kano smiled and said her mom did too, and that she'd been playing since she was a kid. Taiki, trying to keep up, said he's more into badminton, but he really respected how serious she was about basketball. Then he brought up something from the past, a moment that stuck with him. About a year and a half ago, right after her team lost a tournament, he saw her back in the gym, practicing like nothing could stop her. That was the first time he really noticed her. Kano looked at him, a bit surprised by what he said. But before anything else could happen, their teacher came in and called it a day. As Kano offered to help with the basketballs, she and Taiki both reached for one at the same time, and their hands touched. Total movie moment. Taiki froze for a second, heart racing, while Kano just smiled and kept going like it was nothing. The next morning, Taiki was getting ready for school when his mom handed him lunch. That's when he spotted a flyer with Kano's picture on it. He paused, clearly surprised, and his mom picked up on it right away. She casually dropped that she actually used to play basketball with Kano's mom back in the day. But then, out of nowhere, came the real shocker. She told him Kano's family was moving abroad soon. That news hit Taiki hard. His chest felt heavy. How could someone like Kano, who trained so hard and gave it her all, just leave like that? He couldn't stop thinking about it. Without wasting a second, he ran out the door, sprinting to school, desperate to find her and figure out what was going on. When he finally reached the gym, there she was, right in front of him. Taiki didn't hold anything back. He told her to go for nationals, to chase the dreams she'd been working so hard for. He poured his heart out, saying he'd been watching her all along, quietly admiring how she never gave up. Full of emotion, he begged her not to leave, telling her that her future wasn't somewhere far away, it was right here. But then, Kano calmly hit him with a surprise of her own. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. Taiki's eyes widened, his face turning bright red. She smiled and explained her parents were moving, but she was staying behind with close family friends. Before Taiki could fully take in what Kano just said, he started awkwardly looking for a way to escape. But just as he was about to bolt, Kano opened up. She admitted that thinking about the tournament she lost had been hard on her. Still, after hearing Taiki's words, she felt motivated again and wanted to keep going. Then she smiled and asked, "Wanna play basketball with me again?" catching him completely off guard. The next morning, Taiki was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word of their conversation in his head. What did I even say yesterday? He wondered, still not sure if he was dreaming. Luckily, it was a day off, he wasn't ready to face Kano just yet. But when he finally made it downstairs to grab breakfast, he froze. Sitting there in the kitchen, like it was no big deal, was Kano. "Morning," she said cheerfully, like this was totally normal. Taiki blinked in confusion. Wait, what is she doing here? Right then, both moms walked in, and Taiki's mom casually dropped the biggest bomb yet. "Oh, by the way, Kano's going to be staying with us from now on. Keep an eye on her, but guys, he thinks how to get on top of her." Taiki's jaw practically hit the floor. Kano politely reintroduced herself to his family and thanked them for letting her stay. Everyone was super excited. After all, not only was Kano insanely talented, she was also very hot. Taiki was spiraling. "I could barely handle seeing her at school. Now she's in my house. There's no way my heart survives this." While he was lost in thought, Kano casually walked into his room and said, "The bath's ready." Taiki panicked, mumbled something about reading a book, and tried to play it cool. She stepped closer, recognized the book, and smiled. Totally flustered, Taiki offered it to her, thinking, if she gets any closer, I'm done for. Kano admitted that staying in a new place felt strange, but knowing Taiki made her feel at ease. She smiled again and left for her room. Later, Taiki realized she was completely normal. He was the only one acting weird. The next day, while playing badminton, his friend called him out. "You're way too hyped today." Taiki blushed and spilled the truth. Kano was living with him. His friend freaked. "Keep it quiet, man. Her fans will destroy you." Taiki agreed. He didn't want to trouble her with his feelings. Not yet. First, he'd focus on training hard and making it to nationals. Then he'd confess his feelings. During a break, Hina popped up out of nowhere and asked, "Why are you trying so hard, Taiki?" Before he could say anything, his friend jumped in. "He's aiming for nationals, even if his chances are 1%. Taiki had been training hard every evening, pushing himself more than ever. Just when he thought he could finally chill, Kano suddenly showed up and asked, "Can you show me how it's done?" They had a quick practice match, and Kano was clearly impressed. "You're so fast, your reflexes are insane," she said. But Taiki stayed humble. "I'm not ready for nationals yet, but I'll keep trying." That caught Kano's attention. "Wait, you're serious about making it to nationals?" she asked, surprised. Then she ran off for a second and came back with a small bracelet. "I made this when I decided to stay in Japan. It reminds me to believe in myself," she said, handing it to him. Taiki was a little stunned but accepted it with a smile. She tied it around his ankle and said, "Don't give up, okay? Make it to nationals for me. His rocket is ready for launch." Then she showed him her matching one, wished him good night, and walked off, leaving Taiki totally overwhelmed, wondering how he was supposed to survive all this cuteness. The next morning, Taiki woke up way earlier than usual. As he walked out of his room, Kano spotted him and smirked. "Why are you up so early?" "It's summer vacation," she teased. Taiki panicked a little and quickly came up with an excuse. Gym practice. Wanted to go in early," he muttered, realizing this was starting to feel way too much like a couple's morning routine. At the gym, Taiki trained harder than ever. Hina, watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but comment, "You're really giving it your all. Something happening between you and Kano?" she asked, grinning. Taiki froze. No way he could tell her Kano was living at his place. Hina would spread that news like wildfire. And right then, just to make things worse, Kano walked in holding something. "You left your wallet at home," she said, handing it to him. Taiki's heart sank. Please don't let Hina connect the dots. He awkwardly thanked Kano as she walked away, trying to keep it cool. Hina gave him a smug smile. "Wow, not bad. Didn't think you would game." Later during lunch, Taiki's friend leaned in and gave him some advice. You should talk to Kano properly. If you stay quiet too long, she might think you're avoiding her. That afternoon, the teacher asked for help moving chairs to the gym. Taiki quickly offered to carry an extra one for Kano, but she refused and walked ahead. He was left wondering, was she upset? Did I say or do something wrong? While he was stressing out, Hina flashed him a confident thumbs up, like she was already one step ahead. Then she went right up to Kano and asked, "Do you have a boyfriend?" Taiki nearly dropped what he was holding. "What is she doing?" Kano just smiled and replied, "Nope." But Hina didn't stop. "Why not? Dates are cute. Holding hands, going out. You're missing out." Still calm, Kano answered, "Right now, I'm focused on basketball. That's my priority." Taiki sat nearby, stunned by how bold Hina was and how cool Kano stayed through all of it. After they finished moving the chairs, the teacher pulled Taiki aside and mentioned something that made his heart skip. The badminton coach had noticed how hard he'd been working. If he kept it up, there was a real shot at making it to nationals. Word started spreading, and people began noticing how serious Taiki was getting. Not long after, Taiki saw Kano trip and fall. His friend, never missing a chance to mess with him, cracked a joke. But Taiki didn't even respond. He immediately rushed over to check on her. "Are you okay?" he asked, concerned. Kano, treating her minor injury like it was no big deal, said she was fine. Then, kind of unexpectedly, she added, "Can we just stand here and talk for a bit?" Taiki blinked, surprised by the sudden request. After a pause, he decided it was time to be honest. "I didn't tell anyone we live together because you're popular, you're amazing at basketball, and I'm just some random guy." People would talk, and it'd cause problems for both of us. Kano listened quietly, and during practice, she finally responded with a calm smile. "That's no big deal. Honestly, I thought you were hiding it because you liked Hina." Taiki looked at her, stunned. "Wait, what? Seriously?" He burst out laughing. "You've got quite the imagination, Kano." She crossed her arms and replied, "It's not funny." Kano didn't laugh at Taiki's joke. "It's not funny," she said seriously, catching him a little off guard. Right after that, the coach gathered everyone and reminded them it was time to start preparing for the upcoming tournament. Taiki's friend explained just how tough the road to nationals would be. First, they had to be the best in their school, then crack the top 16 at regionals, and finally, place high at the prefecture level. Taiki nodded. "Sounds tough, but doable." Then he glanced around and noticed the gym felt extra crowded that day. His friend leaned in and said, "Most of them are here to watch Kano. But you've got some rivals too." Turns out, Hina had her own fan base as well. The coach believed in her and was sure she had a good shot at making it to nationals. Later, while Hina was showing off her skills, she caught Taiki watching and smirked. "That'll be 2,000 yen for the show," she teased. Taiki raised an eyebrow. "What show? There's nothing worth paying for." Hina grinned. "Come on, it's hard to look away from an angel like me." Taiki rolled his eyes. "Keep dreaming." Then he walked off to keep training, but in his head, he couldn't stop thinking. If Hina didn't act so crazy all the time, maybe Kano wouldn't get the wrong idea about us. As the day wound down, Hina mentioned she needed to stop by the local clinic. That's when Taiki remembered. "Oh no, what if she sees Kano walking into my house?" He tried to rush her along, but Hina kept getting distracted, first by some food stalls, then by a cute dog on the street. Watching her, Taiki thought maybe he should buy her something sweet since she seemed so into the snacks. But Hina shook her head. "Can't, I'm watching my diet, got goals to focus on." Taiki was honestly impressed. "You're stronger than I thought. Didn't expect you to be this dedicated." Hina smiled at that. "Well, I think you're the cool one," she said. "I mean, you actually have the guts to talk to Kano." Hina kept going, telling Taiki he was awesome because no matter how hard things got, he never gave up. "You just keep pushing forward," she said with a smile. But then she paused and glanced over his shoulder. "Okay, don't look," she warned. Naturally, Taiki turned around anyway, and there was Kano standing with Haru, a second year and the top badminton player in the entire school. Taiki's stomach dropped. Trying to lighten the mood, Hina quickly added, "They're probably just friends. I mean, they're still hanging out in a group, right?" The next day, though, Taiki saw something else that messed with his head. Kano chatting with Haru again. He couldn't help but stare. Hina, noticing his mood, explained, "They're in the same class. They sit next to each other, it's normal." She urged him not to overthink it, but also reminded him, "Don't forget, Kano told you herself she's focused on basketball." Still, Taiki wasn't totally convinced. "Yeah, well, you can't exactly control who you fall for," he muttered, sounding like someone caught in a rom-com spiral. Meanwhile, the coach was quietly observing everyone. He made it clear that the school's biggest hope was still Haru. But then he added something unexpected. There was another player with serious potential. A hidden gem that just needed some polish. That gem was Taiki. After the match, Taiki stuck around to help clean up. He was just getting into it when, whoosh, a basketball flew past his head, nearly taking him out. He looked up and saw Kano sprinting toward him. At first, he considered just tossing her the ball and making a quick exit. But then she asked, "What time do you finish today?" Taiki replied, "Around 7. And right on cue, Haru appeared, calling out to Kano in the smoothest, most relaxed tone ever. Taiki froze. Did he really just say her name like that? He couldn't believe how effortlessly cool Haru was. The jealousy hit hard. As Taiki ran home, he couldn't stop thinking about it. Haru's voice, the way he said Kano. It kept looping in his head like a broken record. He didn't even know why he was so stuck on it. Why am I obsessing over this? Then, out of nowhere, he ran straight into Kano. She blinked, surprised. "You're back already?" she asked. Taiki tried to bolt for his room, but she stopped him, clearly ready to call him out. She noticed how sweaty he was and raised an eyebrow. "Did you sprint home so I wouldn't be waiting at the door like some abandoned puppy?" That hit hard. She'd totally picked up on how flustered he was. Taiki felt like an idiot for stressing over stuff that didn't even matter. Kano thanked him anyway. But the embarrassment was too much. Without saying much else, Taiki just turned around and started jogging around the neighborhood again, hoping a little running might help him escape his own thoughts. As he ran, he realized how ridiculous he was being. "I need to stop filling my head with this nonsense," he thought. But deep down, he knew it wasn't that easy. The next day, Caillou casually asked Taiki what was up between Kano and Haru. Taiki shrugged it off. "Doesn't bother me," he said, pretending it was nothing. But moments later, they ran into Kano and Haru deep in conversation. Taiki instantly turned away like he didn't care, but Caillou could tell he totally did. Then Taiki overheard Haru say he liked hardworking girls, just like Kano. Seriously, he thought, feeling a bit rattled. As luck would have it, Taiki's next match was against Haru. From the start, Haru dominated, and Taiki struggled to stay focused. His thoughts were all over the place, but then he noticed something. Kano was watching him closely. Haru won, but Taiki didn't seem upset. Caillou was surprised by how upbeat he looked. "I actually had fun," Taiki admitted. When the second half started, Taiki thought about the headband Kano made for him. That memory fired him up. Suddenly, his game changed. He was sharper, faster, and more focused than ever. Everyone noticed Taiki was on a whole new level. After the match, Caillou tried to lift Taiki's spirits. "Don't let it get to you," he said. But even though Haru was a strong opponent, the loss still stung for Taiki. On the way home, he kept thinking about what went wrong and how he could get better. That's when Kano suddenly showed up beside him. "Come on, race me," she said with a grin. They sprinted to the park, where Kano pulled out a couple of rackets she'd grabbed from the gym. "You said you wanted to play with me, right?" she reminded him. Kano tried to serve but struggled, so Taiki gave her a quick tip. To her surprise, it actually worked. They started playing, and Kano joked, "I watched your match earlier. It wasn't that bad," teasing with a smirk. During the second half of their game, Taiki pulled off some solid moves and almost took the lead, but still couldn't beat her. Kano laughed, noticing his frustration. "You really hate losing, huh?" She pointed out how he wasn't giving up, even now, against someone stronger. That hit Taiki hard. He took her words to heart and promised himself, "Next time, I'll win." As the sun started to set, Kano said it was time to head home. But Taiki paused. "You go ahead," he said. "I'll come later, so we're not seen together." The next day, the coach paired up Haru and Taiki for training. As Haru showed up, he casually said, "Let's go," then suddenly turned back with a grin. By the way, Taiki's got a crush on Kano. Taiki froze. What just happened? He was completely caught off guard. From there, Haru kicked off an intense training session, pushing Taiki hard. Taiki quickly ran out of steam, totally exhausted. Haru teased him, saying even Kano wouldn't quit that easily, she's tougher than this. That got under Taiki's skin. Fired up, he powered through the rest of the session, determined to prove himself. By the time class started, he was drained. The only break he was getting now was zoning out at his desk. Caillou, watching all this, was surprised by how seriously Haru had taken Taiki under his wing. He looked like a totally different guy. Haru even gave Taiki a few solid tips, and surprisingly, Taiki actually listened. Later that day, while heading home, Taiki unexpectedly ran into Haru with a group of classmates near the school, and there was Kano standing nearby. Taiki's heart rate shot up as he tried to play it cool. Haru noticed instantly. "Man, your breathing always gets weird when Kano's around," he joked before introducing Taiki to the group. Then, without warning, he said, "Taiki and I are a pair." Right after that, Haru threw in a jab. He's a little weak, and his punches kinda suck. Taiki winced, already feeling embarrassed. But then Haru added, still, he's got potential. If he doesn't give up, he's going to go far. That shift surprised Taiki, and even more so when he caught Kano whispering to someone nearby, Taiki's doing great. Then, out of nowhere, Haru pulled out his phone. Oh, a girl messaged me, he said casually. Taiki's eyes widened. Wait, Haru has a girlfriend. Haru suddenly wondered why he hadn't mentioned it sooner. He thanked Kano again for helping him pick out a gift for his girlfriend. And of course, he couldn't resist poking fun at Taiki one more time, making it crystal clear there was nothing going on between him and Kano. It had now been exactly a month since Kano moved in with Taiki, and by this point, he was fully used to having her around. While enjoying his lunch, Taiki seemed extra cheerful. Kyo noticed and brought up their upcoming badminton match, then raised an eyebrow. Everything good between you and Kano? He asked, catching Taiki off guard. Taiki instantly turned red. Right then, a message popped up on Taiki's phone. It was Kano. He jumped up, excited. But it was just to say they'd accidentally swapped uniforms. Determined to fix it, Taiki rushed off, only to run into Haru, who immediately sensed something was up. Taiki panicked and bolted. He made it to Kano's classroom, but instead of her, he ran into Hina. In his flustered state, he dropped her uniform on the floor. Mortified, he begged Hina not to touch it, blurting out that he hadn't washed it in a month. Hina looked horrified, but it gave him just enough time to snatch it back and keep moving. Then Kano messaged again, meet me on the rooftop. Taiki dashed up there, handed over the uniform, and just as the bell rang, she started changing. Taiki turned bright red and offered to stand guard outside, but the muffled sounds behind the door left him way too flustered to focus on anything. Once Kano finished changing and headed to class, Taiki was still standing there, completely dazed and emotionally destroyed. After practice, Hina caught up with Taiki and asked about the qualifiers happening the next day. Taiki tried to play it cool, saying he wasn't too worried. Later, while walking home with Haru reassured him as well. You've got this. Don't overthink it. That evening, Taiki's mom noticed he seemed a bit on edge and told him to pack early for the big day. While scrambling to get ready, he accidentally spilled water all over his uniform and had to rush back to his room. Trying to shake off the nerves, Taiki grabbed his racket and headed out for a late-night solo practice session. But he wasn't alone for long. Kano saw him warming up and asked why he was practicing so late. Then she noticed something. Your shirt's inside out. Flustered, Taiki yanked it off right there to fix it, completely forgetting she was watching. To his surprise, she was the one blushing now. Her eyes lingered for a second before she said, "You've actually gotten pretty fit." She motioned him closer, then gave him a soft smile and a few kind words. Don't overthink it. Just relax and show them what you're made of. The next day, Taiki arrived looking totally focused. Haru immediately noticed. You seem way more chilled today. The doubles match kicked off, and Taiki was shocked at how smoothly it was going. Haru, calm as ever, said, as long as we stay sharp, there's no way we lose at regionals. Then, someone walked up, an old friend of Haru's, who recognized him right away. Taiki was surprised, but even more surprised when the guy brought up a deal they made. If Haru ever lost a match, he had to give up Kano's phone number. But that hasn't happened yet, the friend said with a smirk. Haru grinned back. Tell you what, if you can beat Taiki in a singles qualifier, I'll consider it. The guy looked Taiki up and down, clearly not impressed. This'll be easy, he muttered, walking off. Later that evening, when Taiki got home, he overheard Kano talking with his mom in the kitchen. Guilt crept in. He'd been so focused on his qualifiers the night before, he hadn't considered how his words might have made her feel. Just as he was about to back away, he caught part of their conversation. Kano was saying she might have said something that upset him. Realizing they'd both been a little harsh, Taiki stepped into the kitchen and casually announced he was back, putting an end to the eavesdropping. The next day, the singles qualifier began. Taiki showed up ready to give it his all, knowing Kano was cheering for him just as much as he was for her. Haru watched from the sidelines, confident. Today's his win, he said proudly. He trained under me. The match kicked off, but Taiki missed the first point. Then a group of girls arrived to watch, turning up the pressure. Haru noticed something off. Taiki's shots were a little too weak, but then he smirked. He's doing it on purpose, messing with his opponent's rhythm. Meanwhile, Kyo was on his way to his own match when he spotted Kano watching from a distance. With a grin, he called her over. You should get closer. Oh, and I know everything. He told her about the deal Haru made. If Taiki won, he'd have to give up Kano's phone number. Don't worry, Taiki's not getting anything out of it. But maybe you should. Kyo smiled and casually suggested that if Taiki won, she should go on a little outing with him. An aquarium trip. He added, "You know, I think he's pushing himself like this because of you." Then Kyo shared something more serious. Taiki had never played like this before, but he'd grown stronger, more confident, ever since someone special like her came into his life. Kano listened quietly, surprised by how much Taiki had changed. As soon as Taiki started scoring, a smile spread across her face. "All right," she said. "If he wins, I'll go with you." That promise added just a little more spark to the match. Taiki finally scored a point, and for a moment, things were looking up. But in the very next match, he lost completely. Just then, Hina popped up, teasing Taiki as usual until his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and froze. A message from Kano, inviting him to the aquarium. Shocked, he dropped his phone, and everyone saw the message. It definitely looked like a date. Taiki, of course, went into full denial. It's not a date, probably just a normal outing. But once he got home, he found himself hesitating outside the door. He was completely smitten, and the thought of going to the aquarium with Kano had his nerves going wild. Back in his room, he tried studying fish facts to look prepared, but his mind kept drifting. What should I wear? What if she wears a dress? Then he heard movement in her room. She was still awake too. The next morning, Taiki overslept and panicked, racing to the meeting spot. He stood there, flustered, until Kano appeared behind him, looking absolutely stunning in a dress. Inside the aquarium, Kano was mesmerized by the sights, while Taiki could barely focus. All he could think about was how cute she looked. As he quietly wondered what she thought of the outing, she suddenly snapped a photo of him. "A keepsake," she said with a smile. They wandered through the aquarium together, reading about the fish and chatting. Then a little kid bumped into Kano, causing their hands to touch. In that small moment, Taiki felt it. He really wanted to be with her. But with nationals ahead, he didn't want to make things complicated. He awkwardly suggested they head back. Kano stopped him. "There's something I need to say." Taiki's heart started racing. Was this a confession? But instead, she apologized. She felt bad for assuming he'd lose, even though he still had a full year to grow. Taiki sighed, realizing this whole outing wasn't a date at all, it was just her way of apologizing. "It's fine," he said. "I didn't dwell on it." Then he handed her a sheet of cute stickers. "If you ever want to talk, send me one of these. I'll come listen." Kano instantly started spamming stickers, and when Taiki saw her bright smile, he blushed hard. "She looks beautiful." Kano laughed and called him an amazing neighbor. Not exactly what he was hoping to hear. The next day, Kyo noticed Taiki eating way more than usual. When Taiki said he was aiming for nationals, Kyo smirked. Someone's in a good mood. That aquarium trip must have gone well. He then casually dropped a bomb. "Maybe Kano likes you too." Taiki turned bright red and sat down just as Kano glanced his way. Smooth timing. While Taiki was still daydreaming, Hina showed up and handed him a form that needed to be checked and submitted. Kyo, picking up on Hina's strange energy, subtly nudged her to stay focused. Then he reminded Taiki, "This regional tournament isn't a joke. If we don't beat Shika's team, nationals are off the table." He explained that Shika's team was ranked the best in the country. They weren't going to be easy to beat. Taiki asked Hina how she was holding up. "I'm fine," she said confidently. "Don't worry, I'm going to win." Just then, Hina's gymnastics coach appeared with a reporter who wanted to interview her. Taiki watched and commented, "She really looks like a star. Strong, talented, but still just a regular girl underneath." Later, after visiting the clinic, Hina ran into Kano and greeted her. They started chatting, and Hina noticed the keychain Taiki had given Kano. That's when it clicked, maybe he really does have a shot with her. So Hina decided to help and shared a little story. The time Taiki injured his ankle to protect her. Kano caught the small smile on Hina's face and started to wonder, is Hina in love with Taiki too? Suddenly, it started raining. Hina didn't have an umbrella, but Kano offered her a spare. Hina admired how thoughtful she was, kind and always prepared. Right then, a nurse rushed out, saying Kano had forgotten her phone. Hina offered to return it and followed after her, only to freeze in shock when she saw Kano walk straight into Taiki's house. Completely confused, Hina stood outside, overhearing bits of their conversation. What's going on? She started heading back to school, still unsure what she'd just witnessed. But then she realized she hadn't returned Kano's phone, so she called Taiki and asked, why did Kano just go into your house?" Realizing there was no more hiding it, Taiki and Kano invited her over. It was time to tell her everything. Hina quickly pieced things together. Kano would be living with Taiki while her parents were abroad. Even though she smiled through it, she couldn't help but feel a little hurt. Why didn't he tell me? They'd been best friends since forever. To punish him, she stacked a pile of books in his arms and declared, "I'll forgive you if you can last 5 hours without hiding anything else." It was weirdly creative, but it helped her let it go. On her way home, though, Hina couldn't stop thinking. No wonder they've grown so close so fast. The next day, Hina was back to practicing her routine, flawless as usual. But her focus kept drifting to Kano. She didn't understand why she was suddenly off her rhythm. In the changing room, she found Taiki sitting down and decided to scare him. But he told her he'd hurt his leg. That's when Hina noticed the bracelet on his ankle, the one Kano had made him. A flicker of jealousy hit her. Taiki casually mentioned they'd promised to reach nationals together, that they were always pushing each other forward. Hearing that, something cracked inside her. Hina turned away, tears welling up before she even realized it. She wasn't sure why she felt so upset, but deep down, she hated how distant she felt, how left out. The next day during practice, she kept messing up. Kaio noticed something was off. Is something going on with you and Taiki? He asked gently. Hina made a decision. I'm not going to get in their way. She kept training, pushing harder, even though she knew everyone was worried. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of being off balance, like trying to run in clown shoes. Nothing felt right. She later ran into the vice principal, who complimented her interview and said she was just as amazing as her father. The words felt heavy, more expectations. All Hina really wanted was to talk to Taiki the way they used to. But every time she thought about it, she worried Kano would misunderstand. So she avoided him, tried to deal with it all alone. A week later, Hina finally started to get back on track. Her mistake stopped, her focus returned, until someone darted into her path, and she collided with him, falling hard. Her ankle throbbed, definitely sprained. Confused and in pain, she wasn't sure what to do, until Taiki showed up. He reached out to help, but Hina hesitated. What if Kano saw them together? Taiki looked at her calmly. Right now, just focus on yourself. Let's get you to the nurse. Hina stared at him. That's when it hit her, she wasn't just hurt physically. She was scared because somewhere along the way, she'd started falling for him too. At the nurse's office, they assured Hina it was nothing serious, just a mild bruise. Taiki, unable to resist, teased her. Wow, queen of drama much. Hina rolled her eyes. Not my fault, I've got a million things going on. Still feeling the ache, not just from the injury, Hina decided to let some of it out. She admitted there was someone she couldn't seem to beat. She wasn't talking about a rival on the mat, but a judge who seemed biased, always giving her high scores, not for her performance, but because of something else. Taiki, completely unaware she was hinting at him, and Kano offered advice. Don't run away. If it matters, fight for it. But his words only made things worse. Fight for love. That's exactly what she was trying not to do. Her heart felt like it was doing backflips, and not the good kind. It was like juggling flaming torches on a unicycle, dangerous, unbalanced, and bound to burn. Taiki finally said it was time to go. Hina stood up and insisted, I'm fine. Doesn't even hurt anymore. Before they left, she looked at him and said, wish me luck. Taiki smiled. Good luck, Hina. And in that moment, she lit up, smiling so brightly, it made everything else fade for just a second. The big day finally arrived, and Hina crushed it, taking first place. Taiki and Kaio were beyond hyped about her win, celebrating her success. Hina, never one to miss a moment, grinned and joked that she'd become even more charming from now on. After school, Taiki was heading home, totally ready to crash. On the way, he ran into Kano, who looked excited. She had just seen Hina and was still buzzing about how impressive her performance was, winning gold as a first year. It's huge. Taiki laughed, calling Hina a total goofball who was obsessed with gymnastics. That made Kano pause for a second. She started wondering if maybe she was getting in the way of their friendship. But that thought didn't last long. Kano reminded herself why she was here. She lived next to Taiki for basketball, and she wasn't about to fall behind. She was just as determined to keep things competitive. The next morning, Taiki woke up and remembered. Today was tryouts for both him and Kano. He'd been training non-stop with Haru, but even he reminded Taiki that taking breaks mattered too. You can't just push forever, Haru had said. Rest is part of getting stronger. As they stepped outside, they ran into Kano and her basketball team, already deep in discussion about the upcoming prefectural tournament. Later that day, on his way home, Taiki kept thinking about Haru's advice, especially why he still couldn't block some of his shots. Lost in thought, he spotted Kano carrying a few bags. Maybe now's a good time to talk. He walked over and offered to help, but Kano said the bags weren't heavy. Then she smirked. Isn't it a little awkward walking home with a girl? Taiki, thinking fast, played it cool. Total coincidence, he said, pretending it was no big deal. And just like that, they ended up walking home together, shoulder to shoulder, like it was the most natural thing in the world. As they walked, Kano mentioned how kind everyone in the neighborhood had been to her. She smiled and said it was one of the reasons she hadn't given up, and that, honestly, she was really happy living at Taiki's place. Hearing that made Taiki pause for a moment. Then, with a small grin, he suggested a quick detour. He led her to a quiet shrine he'd been visiting since he was a kid. His go-to spot before any big competition. They stood side by side and made a wish together. Taiki silently hoped they'd both pass their tryouts. The next day, the basketball tryouts kicked off. Kano entered the court completely locked in. Her team dominated their first match with ease. Afterward, Kano and her teammate Nagisa headed out for a quick restroom break. On the way, they ran into a group of girls from another school, who immediately started whispering. "Looks like things are heating up, on and off the court," one said. "She hasn't even improved." Nagisa looked ready to fire back, but Kano stopped her calmly. "Let's not waste our breath," she said. "We'll settle it on the court." Meanwhile, Taiki had just lost his match against Haruo. As he stood off to the side, he noticed Kano's team had won, but her expression was far from cheerful. He then overheard Nagisa standing up for her, defending her against some rude comments. Putting two and two together, Taiki realized something was bothering Kano. Right then, she suddenly appeared behind him and quietly told him to keep it down. Nagisa might hear. Kano smiled softly. "She's a great friend," she said, trying to lighten the mood. Taiki told her to ignore what people say, that it didn't matter. But Kano, eyes full of determination, shook her head. "No, I'm going to beat Koharu's team and show everyone what I'm really capable of." Taiki stood there stunned. "She's even cooler than I thought." Later that day, during the final match, Taiki faced Haruo again, and this time, he won. Everyone in the gym was shocked. He'd finally cracked Haruo's strategy, reading his movements and keeping his own actions minimal to predict his shots. With every match, Taiki was improving. Even Haruo noticed. "You're finally catching up," he said, impressed. Seeing how much progress they've made, the teacher called off the remaining matches, reminding everyone to rest up for tomorrow's games. Before leaving, Haruo turned back to Taiki and smirked. "Don't lose until we meet again in the finals." On the way home, Taiki walked with Kyowu, feeling that sense of growth settling in, like he was finally leveling up. Kyowu, never one to miss a chance to tease, grinned. "So, if you make it to nationals, you gonna confess your love?" Taiki paused, just for a second. His mind wandered to a full-on wedding scene before he quickly snapped out of it. "I mean, not yet," he admitted. Sure, he wanted to confess, but what if Kano didn't feel the same? Living together would suddenly get awkward, and he didn't want to make things uncomfortable for her. Better to respect her space, he thought. Don't be selfish. Just then, they bumped into a few badminton teammates outside a store. As a reward for their effort, they offered to treat Taiki and Kyowu to anything under 500 yen. Inside, while browsing snacks, Taiki started daydreaming, maybe about inviting Kano to the beach. When they stepped out, they saw the girls nearby, and Taiki instantly tensed up. Kyowu noticed and chuckled. Before he could say anything, Hina appeared, grabbed Taiki's snack, and playfully teased him. Kano spotted it all, and on her way out, Hina even promised to make Taiki a bento next time. Kano, watching it unfold, turned to Taiki. "Can I have one of those snacks?" she asked. He handed one over without thinking. That's when she said it, casually but clearly. "I saw Hina take your snack earlier, and, I don't know, I felt kinda jealous. But now that I said it, I feel better." Then she walked off, leaving Taiki standing there, heart thudding. Wait, was she jealous over the snack? Or something more? The big day had finally arrived for both Kano and Taiki. Kano woke up to the sight of Taiki already outside doing his morning exercises. Surprised, she asked what he was doing, and he replied, "Trying to calm my nerves." Curious and wanting to relax too, Kano joined him. Taiki mentioned that he had both a doubles match today and a singles match tomorrow. Only one pair and one singles player would move on to the finals, so the pressure was on. Kano said her basketball finals were also the next day, and she couldn't wait. Thinking back to something she'd said earlier, Taiki promised he'd ask her more about it after the finals. At school, the sports grounds were alive with energy. Every team was in action, but all eyes were on badminton. Taiki and Haruo waited for their turn, and Taiki felt good about the atmosphere. It was tense, but exciting. Haruo decided to catch a glimpse of Hayaru's match, a player he'd once lost to. Hayaru noticed him and nodded briefly before returning to the game. Watching him play, Haruo couldn't help but admire him. If Hayaru were a video game character, his stats would be maxed out in every category, he said. Hayaru was clearly dominating the court, but instead of feeling intimidated, Taiki found himself inspired. Watching a strong opponent made him want to push harder. After the match, the two headed off to warm up. During a short break, Taiki stepped outside and noticed a boy nearby who had dozed off. Spotting a wallet slipping out of his pocket, Taiki quickly pointed it out. Before he could say more, Haru called him back. Taiki nodded and returned, ready to face whatever came next. Yusa, a junior from the same university as Hyota, was also putting on an impressive performance, showing real potential on the court. Next up was the highly anticipated match, Haru and Taiki's team versus Hyota's. In the first game, they were quickly overwhelmed and lost. But in the second game, Taiki stepped up, returning shots he never could before. He even saw an opening and smashed a powerful shot, but it landed just out of bounds. Frustrated, Taiki began blaming himself, but Haru calmly patted him on the shoulder. "Pull yourself together," he said. "It's not over yet." Meanwhile, Kano returned home, and Taiki's mom congratulated her on making it to the finals. But back at the gym, Taiki had lost his match. Later that evening, Kano stopped by his room, only to find him already asleep. She paused, watching him quietly. It didn't feel like the right time to wake him up or offer comfort. But then, she noticed something on his desk, a note Taiki had written to himself, promising to improve his shot. Seeing that, Kano smiled softly. He's not the kind of person who gives up. When Taiki's mom returned from the store, she gently woke him up. That's when he noticed a little addition to his note Kano had written beside it, saying she'd work on her shots too. The next day, Haru told Taiki that after his match with Hyota, the best player in the country, they'd likely face each other in the finals. Taiki didn't back down. He nodded with determination. "I'm giving it everything I've got." In his first singles match, Taiki faced Yusa and lost. Fast, the match ended so quickly, he barely had time to process it. One moment he was on the court, the next it was over. He was stunned and crushed. Just then, Hina showed up, excited to watch his matches. But when she heard he was already eliminated, her energy dropped. "Wait, that was it?" she asked. When others confirmed the matches were done, she looked disappointed, not for herself, but for Taiki. He had worked so hard, only to be knocked out in the first round. Hina could see how defeated he felt, and it hurt to watch. Still, for the first time in a while, Taiki spoke up. Hina approached gently and told him she'd brought the lunch she promised. Taiki apologized, feeling guilty that she'd come all this way just to see him lose. "I knew I wasn't ready for the finals yet," he admitted, "but I'm not giving up." Hina looked at him, proud. No matter the outcome, Taiki always faced forward, never backing down, never quitting. Later, the highly anticipated match between Hayato and Haru began. It was intense and inspiring, with Hayato taking the win again. Haru gave it everything, but just couldn't overcome Hayato's strength. He wasn't crushed, but he was fired up, clearly frustrated to lose to the same rival again. On his way home, Taiki thought about everything that happened. He realized there was no use being sad. What he needed now was to train harder, so next year, he'd be ready. When he got home, he overheard his mom celebrating Kano's victory. She had advanced further in her tournament. Taiki was genuinely happy for her, but a part of him still ached. "I promised we'd make it to the finals together," he thought, "and I couldn't keep my word." The next day, Taiki hit rock bottom at school. The midterm exams had started right after the competition, and he was totally unprepared. Kaio told him they needed to head to practice, but Taiki just looked more stressed. Now, on top of the pressure from training, he had to cram for exams too. He spotted Hina buried in her textbooks. "Don't distract me," she warned, clearly just as overwhelmed. When they finally got to the gym, the basketball team was already practicing, harder than ever since they'd made it to regionals. The second Taiki saw Kano out on the court, giving it her all, his mood lifted a bit. He tightened his grip on his racket and decided to push through practice. But Hina could still see it in his eyes. He wasn't okay. Between Kano advancing to nationals and the tension he felt at home, something was weighing him down. It hurt Hina to see him like that. Luckily, Kaio stepped in. "You'll get through this," he said, offering Taiki the support he needed. During practice, the badminton coach called everyone together to congratulate Haru on qualifying for regionals. Haru gave a short, respectful speech, thanking the team for backing him up. Then the coach asked everyone to write down a goal for the upcoming year and hang it on the board. Players went up one by one to post theirs. Taiki hesitated, staring at the blank sheet in his hands. After a moment of thought, he finally wrote, "I want to make my shots sharper than Yusa's." During English class, Taiki's head was spinning, stress, exhaustion, and lingering disappointment all piling up. Later, he headed back to the gym for more badminton practice. Afterward, he studied English with Kaio and Hina. His schedule was packed from morning to night. Eventually, it all caught up to him. Taiki came down with a cold. Trying to rest, he headed downstairs, but stopped when he saw Kano returning from her training. Quietly, he turned back and returned to his room, choosing to study instead. Deep down, he still couldn't shake the frustration of not advancing further in the tournament. The next day, everyone was celebrating the end of midterms. Plans to go out were in full swing, but Taiki, feeling worse, opted to head home and rest. Kyo noticed something was off. As soon as Taiki got home, he collapsed on his bed, feverish and miserable. His head was pounding, and with no one else around, the loneliness sank in. Worst of all, his thoughts drifted back to his defeat against Yusa, the sting still fresh. In a fog of self-doubt, he muttered to himself, "I'm worthless." Then, the light flipped on. Kano was standing in his room. "That's not true," she said, gently but firmly. "You did your best." Completely stunned, Taiki sat up. She walked over to check his temperature, and he panicked. "You shouldn't be here. You'll get sick." But Kano smiled. "It's okay. You just need rest." She left the room for a moment and returned with a bowl of hot udon. "Your mom will be back late," she said. "I'll take care of you for now." Lying in bed like a child, Taiki looked at the food, overwhelmed with gratitude. But after the first bite, his smile faded. He couldn't even taste it through the congestion. Still, he thanked Kano, and they settled into a quiet moment. He finally felt ready to talk. Kano sat beside him and softly promised, "I'll stay with you until you feel better." They both agreed. Once he recovered, they'd finally have the conversation Taiki had been holding onto since the competition. Taiki pretended he'd forgotten what he wanted to ask Kano, even though deep down, he hadn't. The truth was, things had changed. Back then, he had the confidence to ask her. But after losing, that confidence had faded. Sensing that, Kano decided to speak up first. "Why didn't you write nationals as your goal?" she asked. Taiki hesitated, then admitted that during his match, he'd missed several chances that could have changed everything. Watching so many strong players made him reevaluate his own skill level. "I just saw things more clearly," he said. "So I wrote something smaller, improving my shot accuracy." Kano chuckled. "Even you stress about things like that." She gave him a gentle smile and encouraged him to start fresh, to rebuild his drive without putting so much pressure on himself. She even shared her own story about how in her first year, the pressure to perform nearly crushed her. But in the end, it was her genuine desire to improve that kept her going. "Don't underestimate your goals," she told him. "No matter how far away they seem, they still matter." After taking his medicine, Taiki finally let himself relax, thinking about how much he admired Kano. Not just her skill, but the way she understood herself and her values so clearly. Then he said quietly, "I think I want to add something to my goals." While she started tidying up, Taiki tried to help, but his body wasn't quite ready. As he stood up, he stumbled, and Kano rushed to catch him. Instead, they both lost their balance and fell right onto the bed, together. Embarrassed, Taiki quickly apologized, saying, "Sorry, my head's spinning." But before he could fully recover from the awkward moment, Kano gently reached out and touched his cheek. Taiki froze, completely caught off guard. But guys, he is thinking to clap her from the beginning. As the moment settled, Kano noticed the bandage on his forehead had come loose. She quietly stood up and left the room, leaving Taiki lying in the mood. One thing was certain, there was no way he was falling asleep after that. The next morning, Taiki's mom checked his temperature and smiled. "You're already better." But Taiki insisted he had to go to practice. On his way there, he couldn't stop thinking about the night before, still replaying that moment with Kano. She really is amazing, he thought. At school, he ran into Haru and his friend, who were cleaning the pool. Apparently, the teacher had asked them to help since the gym was being used by the volleyball club. Taiki had planned to do strength training, but when he saw Kano already in the pool area, he changed his mind and offered to help too. Taiki quickly tried to explain he wasn't helping just because Kano was there, but let's be honest, it was pretty obvious. Haru teased him about it, saying he only agreed to clean so he could swim afterward. Then, switching gears, he reminded Taiki about his match and said his shots weren't the only thing that needed work. "Don't waste time feeling bad. Get better." Simple. Right then, Kano walked by, getting a little too close, and Taiki immediately got flustered. Haru smirked. "So, what's going on between you two?" Taiki reacted a little too defensively. Then, after a pause, he asked, "How do you even know if you're making progress with a girl?" Haru raised an eyebrow. "You're really thinking about dating her?" Then he added, "Kano's great at talking to guys, but if she doesn't like someone, she won't even touch them." That gave Taiki something to think about. Maybe he was reading too much into things, or maybe not. Once the pool was clean, everyone jumped in for a swim. But Taiki sat out. "I just got over a cold," he said, and offered to return the equipment instead. While putting things away, he ran into Kano in the equipment closet. He wanted to say something, but the nerves kicked in again. Strangely, she didn't seem awkward at all about what happened the night before. Taiki finally managed to thank her for taking care of him. She blushed a little, quietly turning to leave. But before she could go, Taiki, without thinking, gently grabbed her hand. Kano froze, not quite sure what had just happened. Neither was Taiki, who snapped out of it and quickly let go, awkwardly blurting, where should I put this bucket? Kano left, and Taiki stood there confused, unsure what he had just done or what it meant. Later, Kano and Nagisa headed to the gym, where they learned that a member of the volleyball team was transferring schools. Nagisa sympathized with the team and said she was glad Kano hadn't transferred. Then, casually, Nagisa brought up relationships. You know what's best, falling for a handsome guy you live with, under the same roof. Kano froze, flustered, blushing, because that was exactly her situation. After school, everyone gathered at Taiki's house for a barbecue. Kano smiled, saying Taiki's mom was seriously skilled at grilling. Later, she headed into the kitchen to help Taiki's dad prep vegetables. It was the first quiet moment Taiki's dad had with Kano. He was always busy with work and hadn't had a chance to talk to her properly. He asked if everything was okay and whether she was happy living with them. He explained that he and Yuki had promised to take care of her, to make sure she was doing well because her youth and her future mattered. When she made it to nationals, the whole family had been proud of her. Just then, Taiki walked in, surprised to see them mid-conversation. When Kano mentioned going out to buy a few things, Taiki's dad insisted Taiki go with her. It's too late for a girl to be out alone, he said. Taiki blushed, but Kano took the lead and casually invited him to come along. They went to the store, grabbed what they needed, and started heading back. Taiki, now awkward and out of conversation topics, just tried to keep things moving. Kano asked if they could eat the ice cream they bought, and Taiki smiled. Totally fine. My mom has a rule, it's okay as long as it's after shopping. Kano laughed, happy with the rule. You're just like your mom, she said, strong and confident. Taiki replied, and you're like your dad. But Kano shook her head. I never really understood what he was thinking. Taiki pointed out that maybe they were more alike than she thought. Then, she opened up, telling him that the first thing she did was tell her father she wanted to stay in Japan and make it to nationals. She was scared of his reaction, but he had supported her. The sincerity in her voice made Taiki admire her even more. Suddenly, a car sped by too close. Without thinking, Taiki pulled Kano toward him, protecting her. She ended up right against him, and for a second, the memory of the night before flashed back in her mind. Kano stepped back, took a breath, and said, about last night, forget it ever happened, and nothing like that will happen again. I'll be more careful. Then she walked ahead, leaving Taiki behind, realizing she had drawn a line between them. She must have sensed how he felt and was now creating distance. The next day, their teacher announced summer vacation would begin, though they were reminded not to slack off. Kyowu and Hina both noticed how down Taiki looked. At the start of break, Hina offered to pick Taiki up after training and take him to the library. Let's get all our homework done so we don't have to think about it later, she said cheerfully. Taiki asked how she could be so relaxed when she had nationals coming up. Hina smiled. I'll be fine. I've got it handled. Just then, they spotted Kano. She noticed them, smiled, and greeted them. Hina waved, but Taiki instinctively ducked behind her. She gave him a look. He sighed. We had a barbecue the other day. It was fun, but I think we got too close. She said that, and now, I don't know. Hina listened, unsure how to respond. But Taiki didn't stay stuck for long. He stood up straight and said, anyway, time to hit the gym. Summer vacation had officially started, but Taiki was still quietly avoiding Kano. That morning, he told her he was heading to school, then to the library to knock out all his homework with friends. Kano simply smiled and wished him good luck. It felt normal, and that's what bothered him. Everything was back to how it was, yet something was definitely different. At school, Taiki decided to pretend nothing had happened. If he acted normal, maybe things would just fall back into place. In the library, Hina had completely zoned out. Her head was down on the table when Taiki nudged her awake. Sorry, she mumbled. I've been staring at this for an hour and still don't get it. Suddenly, Ito, who had always had a thing for Hina, saw an opening and stepped in, offering to help her out with a little too much enthusiasm. Taiki left to grab some drinks and found Hina chilling outside. Taking a break, he asked. She groaned. I'm exhausted. Just then, they overheard someone nearby talking about the fireworks festival coming up next week. The memory hit them both, last year's festival. Hina lit up. That was the first time we really hung out, she said. She loved sweets, especially candy apples, and the thought of going again got her excited. She raised her hand while talking and accidentally bumped into Taiki, just like when they first met. Flashback. After one of her training sessions last year, Hina had rushed to the festival, only to find all the candy apples sold out. She wandered around, unable to find her friends, growing more disappointed by the second, until Taiki appeared, holding a candy apple. "Wait, how did you know I love these?" she asked. "I saw you drooling over them last time," he said with a grin. From that moment, they became closer. Hina started teasing him more, and Taiki didn't mind. Back in the present, Taiki was about to get back to his assignments when Hina blurted out, "Hey, let's go to the festival together again this year." Taiki smiled and agreed, but just then, a classmate walked over and handed him his phone. "Hey, someone called for you." Taiki excused himself and left. Back home, his mom was chatting with Kano, encouraging her about her upcoming tryouts. Then she remembered the fireworks festival and offered Kano one of her old yukatas to wear. Taiki, sitting nearby with his homework, tensed up. It felt strange, everyone acting so casual about the festival, while he wasn't sure how to act around Kano at all. His mom turned to him. "What about you, Taiki? Going to the festival?" "Yeah, my friends invited me," he replied, still unsure, then quietly decided, "I'll bring Kyowu with me." The next day, Taiki had another joint training session with Haruo. After a solid round of drills, Haruo praised him for his performance, saying, "You've really stepped up." Taiki noticed something, too. Haruo himself was getting stronger. Progress all around. After practice, Haruo mentioned that some friends from his university had invited him to a game and asked if Taiki wanted to come along. Taiki agreed without hesitation. A little later, Hina spotted Taiki smiling at himself in the mirror and raised an eyebrow. "What's with the cheesy grin?" Taiki explained that Haruo had invited him to a university-level match. Hina smiled, but then the topic shifted. "So, who else are you inviting to the fireworks festival?" Taiki asked. Hina hesitated, blushing slightly. "I haven't invited anyone else yet," she admitted, quickly covering it up. "But I will. I'll ask a friend later." Later that day, Taiki told Kyowu about the festival and asked him to come along. Kyowu agreed but asked, "So, who else is going?" "Hina invited me," Taiki replied, "but I think she forgot to invite others." Kyowu gave him a knowing look. "She forgot? Huh?" He immediately pieced it together. Hina clearly wanted it to be just the two of them. Taiki, of course, didn't get the hint at all. To be fair, Kyowu thought, if you're gonna ask someone to the festival, you could at least be clear about it. Meanwhile, Hina asked her friend if she could join her at the festival, but her friend had already made plans with someone else. Disappointed, Hina sighed. "It's the first time I worked up the courage to ask him," she said. "I don't think I can say it again." Her friend looked at her seriously. "You need to stop pretending you're just friends with Taiki. Anyone can see that's not the case." Meanwhile, Kano and Nagisa were chatting about the upcoming fireworks festival. They tossed around the idea of inviting some boys, but Kano quickly decided against it. "It'd just be unnecessary," she said casually. Elsewhere, Hina gathered her courage and approached Taiki. He told her Kyowu had agreed to come to the festival, then asked, "What about your friends? Anyone else coming?" Hina shook her head. "Nope, everyone's busy." After a pause, she quietly asked, "Were you hoping to go with Kano instead?" Taiki looked away. "I mean, yeah, but I couldn't ask her. She'd definitely say no." He went on to confess that over the past month, he thought he and Kano were getting closer, but maybe that was just his imagination. He realized there was no mutual feeling. In fact, the closer he got to her, the more afraid he became, afraid of being rejected. Frustrated, Hina lightly hit him. "Even if you're scared, don't forget who you are," she said. "You're always the one who pushes forward. That's what makes you cool." She turned red and ran off, flustered. And for the first time, Taiki saw a different side of Hina. The next day, Taiki and Haruo headed to a university for some practice matches. There, they bumped into Hayaru, who mentioned he'd be attending that university next year. After a few tough matches, Taiki started to struggle. Hayaru approached him and offered some advice: "Don't tense up when you swing. It's not about strength, it's about the motion. Stay relaxed." Taiki tried it, tossed the birdie, focused on the movement, and hit it. It felt different, stronger, cleaner. "If I'd hit like this before," Taiki muttered, "I could have scored more points against Yusa." Hayaru nodded but warned, "You rely too much on defense. You hold back. If you keep playing like this, you won't get far." Taiki didn't argue. "I'm not giving up," he said. "I'll catch up to Haruo and Yusa. I'll surpass them." With renewed energy, Taiki jumped back into the match. Hayaru watched him go and thought, "I like that kind of fight in a player." By the end of the day, Taiki was completely worn out. As they packed up, Haruo asked where he was heading next. "The festival," Taiki said. Just then, he got a message from Kyowu, "Sorry, I'm sick." can't make it. But in truth, Kaiwu faked it, knowing how much Hina wanted to go with Taiki alone. Later that evening, Taiki waited at the festival for Hina. She messaged, saying she'd be a little late. While waiting, he saw a caramel apple stand and smiled, deciding to buy one for her. When he turned around, he froze. Hina was walking toward him in a yukata, and for the first time, he had no idea what to say. Across the festival, Kano and her basketball team had also decided to come out for the night. One of the girls spotted Taiki and Hina walking together and immediately started commenting. They look cute, like a real couple. Kano didn't like hearing that. As Taiki walked with Hina, he noticed something. She was unusually quiet. That's strange, he thought. Normally, she never stays quiet when we're together. Hina quickly ran off to grab some food, partly to hide how nervous she felt. This whole situation had her heart racing. Taiki wasn't just some guy to her. She wanted him to notice her, really see her. She wanted to be called cute. But at the same time, she worried she might be acting weird. After a bit, she and Taiki found a quiet spot to watch the fireworks. With 10 minutes to go before the show started, they decided to chat. Taiki noticed Hina seemed a little off, not her usual self. Suddenly, a mosquito bit her. She winced and scratched at her arm. Taiki pulled out a small cream and offered it to her. Since Hina couldn't reach the spot properly, Taiki gently applied it for her. Then, casually, he asked, "Did you do your hair yourself? It looks amazing." He smiled. "It's really cute." Right then, the fireworks started bursting in the sky, but Hina barely noticed. She was glowing inside. He'd called her cute, just like she'd hoped. When the fireworks ended, there was a short break. Taiki said he was heading to the restroom and to grab a drink. As he walked through the crowd, he spotted Kano trying to calm a little girl who seemed lost. He offered to help, but Kano said she had it handled. The little girl, however, had other plans. She grabbed both of their hands and insisted they help her find her mom. Meanwhile, Hina was still flustered, checking her reflection and replaying what Taiki had said. Then a classmate walked up behind her. "Hey, are you here alone?" Hina shook her head. "No, I came with a friend." The boy and his group asked if they could join her to watch the fireworks. Hina hesitated, unsure how to respond. Back near the food stands, Taiki accidentally bumped into a girl he didn't recognize. She was gorgeous. Before he could say anything, Kano spoke up. "That's Karen. We met back in kindergarten." Then she added, "She's Haru's girlfriend." Taiki blinked. "Wait, Haru has a girlfriend." Karen turned to him. "And you are?" "I'm Taiki. Haru's helping me in the badminton club." Karen smiled. "Aw, so you're that Taiki. He's talked about you before." Embarrassed, Taiki asked what Haru had said about him. But Karen just gave a teasing smile and walked away. Later, she returned to Haru and casually mentioned, "I saw Taiki and Kano together." While walking away, Karen noticed how nervous Kano seemed and casually commented, "You probably wouldn't be able to date Taiki, huh?" Her words lingered in the air. Meanwhile, Taiki and Kano arrived at the festival's registration area with the lost little girl. Taiki offered to go find the child's parents and quickly ran off into the crowd, leaving Kano to stay with the girl. As they waited, the girl asked, "Why didn't you wear a yukata?" Kano smiled and replied, "I thought my t-shirt looked cute too." They chatted a bit more, and Kano mentioned she played basketball. The little girl seemed impressed. Soon, Taiki returned, successfully finding the girl's mother. The woman thanked them, clearly relieved. Kano gently reminded the girl not to wander off again. As a thank you, the girl gave Kano a small trinket. Kano smiled and accepted it. Taiki laughed at the whole situation. That felt like something out of a kid's show. He joked. Together, they headed toward a spot where the fireworks could be seen. But just as they arrived, the show had already started. Kano glanced at the time. "I should hurry. My team's probably waiting for me." Taiki nodded. "Thanks for earlier. See you around." They parted ways, and Taiki took off, fully aware that Hina would be very annoyed with how late he was. Sure enough, when he arrived, Hina crossed her arms. "You totally owe me for making me wait," she said. What Taiki didn't know was that Hina had turned down her classmates earlier, because she really just wanted to be with him. As the night wound down, Hina blushed slightly and looked up at the fading fireworks. "Hey, let's do this again next year," she said quietly. And even if she didn't say it directly, what she really meant was just the two of us. Meanwhile, Kano returned to her group after the fireworks. One of her friends immediately picked up on it. Something was off. "You look kind of down," she said. But Kano just gave a small smile and brushed it off. Elsewhere, Taiki sat in silence, watching the last bursts of light in the sky. His mind wandered. What's next? Where do I go from here? The next morning, Kano woke up and noticed something strange. Taiki was already gone. He'd left early for a run. Not wanting to fall behind, Kano laced up and headed out to train too. But no matter how hard she pushed herself, she couldn't shake a strange feeling in her chest, that lingering unease. At the same time, Haru was crushing it during practice matches, focused, sharp, relentless. Watching him, Taiki realized he had to level up. After all, Hayaru's advice had stuck with him: don't relax, stay sharp, always improve. During practice, a shuttlecock flew off course and landed near Hina. Taiki called out, asking her to toss it back, but paused when he saw her working intently on her rhythm for an upcoming gymnastics performance. He smiled and gave her a quick good luck before heading back to practice. Later, the basketball team wrapped up and took a break. Kano opened a window for some air and happened to spot Taiki lying on the gym floor, fast asleep. Curious, she walked over, quietly knelt beside him, and softly asked, "Are you dating Hina?" She didn't expect a response, he was still asleep. But the question weighed heavy. Deep down, Kano knew her own feelings for Taiki hinged on what his answer would be. As she stared at him, memories flooded back, moments they'd shared, things unsaid. And almost to herself, she whispered, "It hurts when someone lies to you." Before Taiki could stir, Kano quietly stood and slipped away. Taiki thought later that day, she's the one who drew the line. Yet now she keeps inching closer again. Soon after, Kano finished packing for the basketball qualifiers. Taiki's mom saw her off with a smile, wishing her luck. But just as the car pulled away, Taiki noticed something on the table, her wallet. Without thinking, he grabbed it and took off running. When he caught up, he hesitated, unsure of what to say. What do I even say? How do I support her? But deep inside, he only wanted one thing: for her to stay safe, avoid injury, and return victorious. Trying to find the right words, he looked up, only for Kano to raise her hand. "High five," she said with a soft smile. Taiki gave her a high five, and with that, she said goodbye and left. But guys, what do you think? Is really Taiki got any chance to clap Kano, or he has clapped someone else? Tell me in the comments, guys. That's it for today's video, guys. Watch the following video, and we'll see you in the next one.